That's the main scene.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Almost. God damn it.
Are we on the air?
We are on the air, and we were so close.
Yeah.
We were so close to it being perfect. God damn it. There's always something. But that's okay.
Yeah. Welcome to the Trigger on the Stack podcast. I am your co-host, Dustin Holler.
I'm the other co-host, Jonathan Brown.
Yeah. Third co-host, Chris Priest, is not here tonight, and I'd fired him, basically. I fired him. He is no longer part of this podcast. And there's actually a bounty on his head.
A bounty indeed.
Dead or alive.
Of magic cards.
Preferably dead. He's dead to me already, so I guess it really doesn't matter. Yeah, he can't keep his obligation, so he's out. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. Fun.
Cutthroat.
Yeah,
how we do
we're
this
very
utopian thing here. All right.
So, how's it going tonight, John? You've been playing a lot of Modern and playing a lot of Magic in general?
Well, I've been playing a good amount online, which even though I haven't jamming as many leagues as I want, even not jamming leagues, you still get a pretty good idea of what things look like out there.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And things look, and we talk about it a lot. A lot of things look kind of suspect.
Yeah.
we talk about it.
Things are very rainbow colored right now.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, there's no reason for them not to be. And that's kind of the problem, is that there's so much good that you can't not. I mean, you have to play these things.
Yeah.
You know, they keep printing cards that you just have to play.
Yeah. And as a result of that, there are cards that you can't play.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that that's the topic of tonight's episode.
Yep. And there are so many of those.
Yeah, gone but not forgotten. And we're going to focus almost primarily on Modern. This is going to be a very Modern-centric.
Yeah. I mean, I think
episode.
Anybody that cares about what we do here knows that that's always kind of the focus.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I guess. We should maybe broaden our horizons eventually. But for now.
Yeah.
For now.
I asked Matt Weiss the first week that we did the podcast. I'm like, did you get a chance to listen to it? What'd you think? And he's like, I thought it was really good. He's like, however, if I was a Commander player, I probably would have turned it off after 10 minutes and would never tune in again. I'm like, okay, well, we lost them then.
Right. Fair enough.
Yeah, maybe we'll need to do a Commander episode to get them back at some point.
Right. I mean, the right kind of Commander episode, I guess, because we know what'll happen if we do.
Oh, yeah, it'll turn to shit in a hurry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could try to find the positives, you know? Like, we could be those guys for a day.
So, gone but not forgotten. And what this basically is we came up with the idea. There are so many, like, former Modern staples that now you could say are basically unplayable. Or not unplayed.
Well, yeah, you could, I guess there could always be an argument that they're not absolutely unplayable, and I'm definitely one of those guys that might make that argument because I play a lot of arguably unplayable shit most of the time anyhow. But it's a hard argument to make.
And that's something you probably have to define. So as a Magic player, when you hear the word unplayable, that doesn't mean that, like, you physically can't play it.
Right.
Like, when a Magic player says that's unplayable, what they're saying is you probably shouldn't be playing that.
Yeah, exactly. You probably shouldn't be. Yeah.
If your goal is to play and then win matches of Magic, that probably shouldn't be in your deck.
And then, you know, that's an individual choice, is how much you want to consciously get trounced by your fucking opting for Flare. You know?
Yeah, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go over some of these cards, talk about unplayable decks are fun and not. Okay. We're going to talk about some of these cards
by Goober.
And basically why they're unplayable and maybe reminisce about how great they used to be.
Yeah, for sure.
And go ahead and start it off, John. What do you got? What's
the one we've talked about most recently? I don't know if we mentioned on air or not, and I think one that's a pretty easy go-to is the old Aether Vial.
Aether Vial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty, and that's a good one too, because people would still. I think there's always a default assumption that it's always going to be playable and it's always going to be powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's been such a powerhouse, and it is an intrinsically just super powerful card. But we have definitely seen, we are in the thick of it now, in Modern especially. That means it's just not anything. It's not anything really important anymore,
Yeah, it's not, and I think there are a few reasons for that. One of them you can look at are there are a lot of good answers to Aether Vial. You've got Prismatic Ending.
Yeah.
You've got Archmage's Charm. And if you're a tribal player and you're still trying to jam your Aether Vial, and somebody with an Archmage Charm waits till you get it to 2,
yeah, and then they
steal it and then start playing Snapcaster mages off of it. That's gotta feel really bad.
No, it does. It's happened to me. It's pretty fucking not okay. It's pretty not okay at all. And then you also have Beseiju and all that. So answers just abound, and everybody has them because there's a lot of decks that splash white, a lot of decks that just play white because of Prismatic. Because and why not?
Yeah.
It's just such a good card that you're kind of silly if you're not playing it, And even if you want to make a case, there's just not really a case to make. It should just be there.
And that's something we've seen more and more of. And it's not just Prismatic, and I think that's the most common one, just because white's a pretty highly played color, and it's in a lot of
Prismatic,
decks,
basically, is why white turned around.
Even that aside, and you talk about Beseiju, what both of those cards kind of point to is Wizards going to this. We're starting to see more and more of them just giving you reasons to play main deck answers to everything. Yeah. And it used to be, you could jam an ensnaring bridge into your deck, and it would just get you a free win in game 1 because just nobody has an answer
for
to
sure.
it.
Yeah.
And that's not really the case anymore, which ensnaring bridge isn't on my list, but it very well could be.
Right.
That's a good example of we're seeing a lot more main deck artifact enchantment destruction in decks.
Yeah. No, you used to actually have to make consideration for those things. You had to, when thinking about a card that you wanted to play, cards had edges before, and a lot of cards don't have any edge now because of these cards. Bridge had an edge. Enchantments defaultly had an edge for a long time because there was no good way to get rid of enchantments, And so a lot of cards flatly just lost the edge they did have just because of these removal spells. And everybody wants interactive cards. We want that for sure. But it's less fun when you don't have to... It's less fun when those edges are gone and those angles of design and those angles of construction are gone.
Yeah. And also, we've kind of spoke about... we spoke about this a little bit off stream before, and another thing that came up regarding Aether Vial is when you think of Aether Vial, you think of tribal decks.
Yeah.
Like humans, merfolk, which if you jam a bunch of matches of Magic Online, you're going to see these decks inevitably.
They're still there.
But
and they're still playing the card. But
you can argue that, because these decks are still playing Aether Vial.
Yeah.
And you can argue that maybe one of the bigger reasons that we're not seeing this card is because these tribal decks are no longer playable.
Yeah.
And so what's the reasoning for that? Why is humans no longer a deck?
I think the problem with tribal in general, outside of elves, because elves are always the exception, because elves are elves, they just are basically a combo deck anyway.
Yeah.
And actually, that touches on...
They weren't a deck that really played Aether Vial anyway.
No, they didn't need to.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The really powerful tribal deck shouldn't really need the cushion of Aether Vial, It makes sense for spirits the most because of... Well, one, spirits has interactions with protecting the Aether Vial if they need to. A lot of the other decks don't, but... what really makes tribal decks unplayable, in my opinion, and I'm a tribal guy, you know that full well, everybody at the store knows that, the value from synergy is just now outclassed.
Yeah.
That's, I think, flatly it. your tribal synergy, whatever tribe it is, isn't as good as Omnath.
Yeah.
It's not as good. So I guess there is one playable tribe in the Elementals. And elves.
Yeah.
And Elementals really is the tribe now, thanks to the Pitch Elementals.
Yeah, and it's the least tribal deck
no,
we've
it
ever
is.
seen.
Exactly, yeah. There is no real tribal synergy outside of one card.
Yeah.
But no, I think what really makes tribal decks just not mean anything anymore is because they're outvalued all the time. You don't get enough premium from the synergy to battle what's happening in the meta. I mean, you got Fury running around. Like, fuck your tribal deck. I've got Fury. And that's why Elementals are the only ones that work, is because they get to play all these hyper-powered cards that shit on the tribal decks.
Yeah, and the other one, the one of the big elephants in the room, which I think you and I are kind of on the same page, Ren and 6.
No, we're absolutely on the same page.
I feel like it's probably public enemy number 1 as far as bannability right now.
For Modern, I think so.
I'm kind of in the place where I want them to ban exactly 2 cards.
Yeah.
I want them to ban Mishra's Bauble and Ren and 6. I think if you ban those 2 cards, you've created a much healthier Modern where you actually have to rebuild, strategies. Like,
for sure.
You can't just run out the same shit minus those cards. Yeah. You have to actually rebuild a metagame.
Well, and the cards the decks that play, so the Omnath decks play Ren and 6.
Yeah, but they're just shitting on your tribal decks, though, right? I mean, like your turn 1 plays, your turn 2 plays. A lot of those are X1s in tribal decks.
Oh yeah, no, Ren and 6 just murders them. But what I'm saying is that if somebody were to cry, like, well, this deck is like, those decks are still going to be there, but at least it makes it it makes them do the kind of honestly powerful thing they're already doing, and not have incidental power just hanging around.
Yeah,
in my opinion, that's a lot of the problem with some of these newer cards, is that the cards are just power vacuums in and of themselves. And so when you have an already powerful thing, and then you're like, yeah, fuck it, let's just throw this card that by itself is insanely powerful. I don't like seeing that so much, because then deck building, construction, how you play your deck means less, because you're just throwing fucking haymakers. It makes it more and more like Commander, where it's nothing but haymakers all the time. So, but yeah, Ren and 6 is terrible for tribal decks, and all these cards being terrible for tribal decks is exactly why tribal decks aren't played, which is exactly why we don't see Aether Vial outside of decks that aren't really, really heavily played. I mean, the decks are going to be there always, like we were saying. You're always going to see Merfolk floating around. You're always going to see these decks floating around. Spirits maybe, but they're not the heavy hitters they were,
Yeah.
Because there's just too much interaction.
All right, so Aether Vial, definitely on the downswing. You could say it is. It's as close to dead as it's ever been.
And it's, it is still, and that's what's so fucked up about how cards have been designed now, is that we have to talk about a card like Aether Vial that is a powerful card.
Yeah.
And it's just, a card that was in such high esteem.
Yeah.
And it is powerful when you just look at the design of the card, is now just, whatever.
Yeah, and Aether Vial is a big one on this list, just because we did name so many, you're talking about so many main deck answers: Prismatic Ending, Beseiju, Ren and 6 hating on X1s.
Right.
Because we're talking about Ren and 6 being the most bannable card as far as the public is concerned. You ban Ren and 6 tomorrow, that doesn't help Aether Vial all that much.
No, exactly.
Like maybe a little, but it's
not a whole lot.
Still, you're still not going to see Aether Vial decks all over the place.
Not all over the place, because there's just, the tribal is just outclassed, man. It's outclassed by just the good ass cards they print now. Like, there's no reason to go for synergy when you just play a pile of good cards.
So hey, we're gonna, while we're on this kind of Ren and 6 talk, I want to move on to the number 1 card on my list. And this is not a card that I have personally cast a lot. I've cast it before, but not a lot. But I need to talk about Bob.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's Dark Confident, for those of you that don't know. I'm sure you all know.
Yeah.
And this is actually interesting, because this takes me back to, Ren and 6 gets me on this subject, because I remember when you and I were having a conversation. I think we might have been sitting in a bar somewhere looking at spoilers, and I saw Ren and 6, and I was just like, I think you were kind of like, I don't really know, and I was just like,
it replaced Bob.
Yeah, I'm like, I think this is the new Bob, And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. I'm like, well, think about it. Anybody who's ever played Bob before, what does he do? He draws you an extra land every turn.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
there's this weird thing about Bob. Whenever you're sitting across the table from somebody playing Jund or whatever, the Bob trigger always hits a goddamn land.
It does.
It
does.
They never die to the goddamn Bob.
No,
They just
always
draw
does.
extra lands.
Yeah.
And so I saw this thing print. I'm like, so it replaces Bob because it draws you an extra land every turn. Plus, if you're stupid enough to play Bob, it kills your Bob.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure. No, it's the Tassiger Gangler effect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, and it's I was hesitant. I resisted that truth at first, but yeah, it's inarguable, really, that is exactly what happened, and also it's just, again, so much more powerful. You know, like you can have a Bob that draws you cards. That's cool. Now you have this thing that draws you an equivalent number of cards, essentially, but also kills things. Also can just end the fucking game. Fixes your mana. Like, it does literally everything you'd ever want a card to do.
Yeah, and the thing that I like, the thing to me that really stands out in this conversation for Bob is that, unlike Aether Vial, if you do ban Renin 6, Bob just comes right back.
Yeah, he get. Oh yeah,
Like, I mean, Jund is now a thing. They're playing Renin 6 again. And to me, that makes for a healthier format, because while I was not really one to play a lot of Bob decks, I do appreciate its place in the metagame. And the thing that Bob gives these decks that Renin 6 does not is urgency.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of the issue with Renin 6 is, like, I'm just sitting here drawing an extra card every turn, waiting until you run out of shit, and then I do my late game.
Right.
Whereas Bob, you're forced to be kind of proactive,
Yeah.
right? You say you always hit land, but eventually you're gonna hit.
You're gonna hit some not land eventually, and that's something that is lacking. And for every Magic player, I mean, not every Magic player. If we get Matt Wise in the conversation, there are definitely some guys that are naturally not urgent. But I do think
no, he's trying to win 1-0.
I do think that there is. I think it's healthy to have urgency in the game. I think it's healthy to have proactivity in the game, and that is exactly what cards like Renin 6 encourage. Is just never dirtling around and just like soul crushing. Like it's not super fun to have to play that Magic. Yeah. It's not super fun to play that to be the guy playing it, and it's definitely not fun. Like, the fun of being the guy playing it wears off eventually, and the other guy just doesn't have any fun. And while this is a competitive game, I like the idea of the game being designed in a way that keeps it fun and competitive.
Yeah.
And these cards don't.
I'm not going to lie. I want Bob back.
As
a
guy
who's has probably fewer Bobs than most people.
Yeah.
Like, I want Bob back. You know what I like about Bob? Like, Bob can kill me. Like, Renin 6 is not going to kill me.
No, it's a super fair card.
But also, I can kill Bob.
Yeah, you can kill Bob.
Yeah.
Also, Bob can kill your opponent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Slightly
Bob
faster than Renin 6.
I can kill Bob.
Yeah.
Renin 6 can't kill me. I generally can't kill Renin 6. It's just going to do its thing until the end of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Bob is one I'd like to see back.
Yeah.
Bring back Bob. I'm on team bring back Bob as a guy who's not a Jund guy.
Well, and going back to Aether Vial, I would like to see Aether Vial be a little bit more playable again, because like there is stuff you can do with Aether Vial outside of the tribal stuff that is interesting, like Death and Taxes, man. Death and Taxes is a cool deck.
Oh, that's the one place where I played Aether Vial.
Yeah. It's a really, and you can do those things with Aether Vial, and it's super interesting. There are interesting things to do with Aether Vial, and those spaces are now locked.
Yeah,
because you can't play Aether Vial.
I actually, this is kind of off subject, but I kind of got off of.
Mike says he killed himself with a Bob by flipping an Emrakul. You brazen son of a bitch.
No, I love your balls for playing those cards in the same deck. Like, dude, I applaud you. I tip my hat to you. I love it. There's a dude that won a Grand Prix. Were you playing the Grand Prix winning deck that played 4 Bobs and the Emrakul, and it was like a Mardu mid-range deck?
Nahiri thing,
the Nahiri. Nahiri not on my list, but it is another card that is no longer in the format.
Exactly. And it's kind of a shame, too, because card...
I did kind of put on, like, as I was going through making a list, I did put Planeswalkers
in general.
My mind went to my mind goes to Jace the Mind Sculptor, which I know decks are still playing Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Well, what happened was the field was fucking cold, man, as far as playable planeswalkers and how you play them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, there were still blockers being played, specific ones in specific shells. There's no chance to play any outside of those shells. Yeah. You still see Jace exactly in white-blue control or a control deck.
I mean, that deck doesn't play it anymore.
Well, one of those decks,
Yeah.
But like there are ones that have a space, but they have to be backed up by specific cards to answer the other cards. But in general, they're dead.
Yeah, and I think the biggest culprit is Unholy Heat.
Exactly, which goes back to Bobble.
Yeah, and it used to be like so Jace has always been kind of fragile.
He was fragile before because of Bolt.
But like you knew you were playing, like if you saw a mountain or a steam vents or whatever from your opponent before you played Jace the Mind Sculptor, then you knew I might actually want to tick it up.
Yeah, exactly.
If they've got a lot of cards in hand, it's probably going to die no matter what. Then I always brainstorm because it's a two for one for me. I get a card out of their hand, I draw an extra card off the brainstorm. It's fine. But now with Unholy Heat, like ticking it up is no longer an option.
Yeah, so it's
right. You tick it up, you don't get anything, and they kill it anyway with Unholy Heat. That feels terrible.
So it forces it to just be the brainstorm.
Yeah, it does and that's why you've seen in Blue-White Control. Like they've always it's kind of been ever since Teferi Hero Dominaria came out. That's been like the main win-con planeswalker,
right?
But like normally you would see a couple, like 2 or 3 Teferis, and then you might see like 1 or 2 Jace the Mind Sculptors to fill out that curve. Well, Jace now in the Blue-White Control deck has been replaced by the Wandering Emperor.
Yeah,
and it's easy to see why, because the Wandering Emperor is going to get the value right away. You're either going to get a dude, you're going to get something off the board.
Yeah.
You're going to gain a little bit of life.
That's something that we've talked about a lot is in Modern now, it has to just be you get the value right then and there. You cannot fuck around. There's no space.
And you can make the argument for probably a lot of the cards that we're going to talk about tonight. Yeah. A lot of it is just you don't get value anymore.
Yeah.
Yep. Which
the game of Magic.
If you go back to Jund, I've got another one on my list, Tarmogoyf.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, it's pretty easy to see why people aren't playing Tarmogoyf anymore.
Yeah, I mean it's just whatever.
You remember when that card was like a $200 card?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Like, and now it's just like I feel like I'm gonna win whenever I see my opponent cast that. It's like
you just played it, dude. You just played a creature. You started to see it
when Fatal Push was like.
Yeah.
Tarmogoyf really fell off when they made Fatal Push. It's like, now everybody just got a 1-man answer.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, now Fatal Push is getting close to unplayable.
Yeah,
because they've just got so many much more efficient answers.
Right.
In different colors,
and it hadn't helped the card.
No, it hasn't
helped the card at all.
And Tarmogoyf has never done anything, right? Like it's all it does is cost 2 mana and be a big dude.
It's just
sometimes.
Super efficient, and it's a big dude.
Yeah,
and that's all.
And there's just so many of those now.
No, there are, and that's that power creep that.
Now we're playing 2 mana 8/8 flyers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. That is exactly the problem. All these cards that used to be just houses, the game has just changed. The game has changed because the power level has changed. How they print cards, how they design cards has changed. Like everything's just fucking ramped up so much that a guy that you just play that's big that sits there, like it doesn't matter. Big dudes don't matter at all, in the game generally they have to do something. So if they don't, then there's no playability. It's all value. That's all this game is value. Yeah,
for sure. So what other ones do you have, John?
For me, we covered the big ones that I was thinking. Bedlam Reveler.
Bedlam Reveler.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know you were a huge fan of that card.
I was a huge fan of that card. That was in the Mardu Pyromancer deck I had that I built before Mardu Pyromancer became a thing, and then immediately became not a thing.
Yeah. For those of you that don't know John or haven't known John as long as I have, he actually was the first person to build a lot of really popular decks. The old Mardu Pyromancer deck John Brown had that thing built before it was actually a deck. Now, like when it actually becomes a deck, it's a little different. But I mean, like the core of the deck, John Brown had that thing built.
I love that
Way
fucker.
before it was ever a real deck.
humming. It was humming too.
In competitive play.
But and a big part of that was Bedlam Reveler, and that one I guess I don't even know exactly why he's so out of favor.
It's because they banned Faithless Looting.
Yeah, I know.
I think that's the biggest.
Well, that
thing.
is the biggest.
They did just kind of kill that deck, and then
there's still
like it was
there's
played.
other stuff.
I saw some fringe playing like some Izzet decks, but I think those have all probably been replaced by 8/8 flyers.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. It's if you don't have to care about those things in your graveyard being instants and sorceries, you just have to care about them being in your graveyard and being a thing. But man, yeah, that card was so fun to play because it's powerful, man. It feels as good as Murktide. It just doesn't fly.
Yeah,
it just doesn't fly. That's the only difference, is it doesn't fly. But that's a big one. And there's all the main board graveyard hate now that's creeping around that makes it harder to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a big one.
So I think the one that's like probably nearest and dearest to me that I want to talk about is Cryptic Command.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah. Cryptic is a good one.
I feel weird talking about this in kind of this setting because I've actually been playing a lot of Cryptic Command lately.
And you do still see it.
Yeah.
But it's not the premium it used to be.
I've been kind of jamming I found a list that God Shadow is a famous Grixis player on Magic Online. He played a list. I still think his list is fucking terrible. I don't know how he ever 5-0'd anything with it, but I took his list and made some changes, mostly adding lands because he's playing 22 lands in a control deck. What a psycho! But yeah,
nice.
He was playing 4 Cryptic Commands with 22 lands in a control deck. It was fucking weird. But no, I made some alterations. I've been playing, and I'm actually down to 3 Cryptics. I mean, I cut a Cryptic for a land, like.
Well, I think that's what happened. Like, so you still see Cryptic. It's not completely gone.
It's mostly gone.
It's mostly gone, but you definitely cannot.
And to me,
full playset, you just can't swing it.
And to me, the reason for that is just the speed of the format.
Yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, like, people are playing 1-drops that just kill you.
Well, looping the Cryptic to tap your opponent's team down was a real thing, and that's not even, like...
Yeah.
It's too slow to do that now.
Well, yeah, and then, it was obviously at its pinnacle when you had the Mystic Sanctuary where you could really loop it with that.
That's a card that I'm glad is gone, and fuck that card. I don't even remember that thing.
Yeah, it's...
that card was a fucking mistake.
That card was just too free.
Yeah. No.
But I think another problem with Cryptic Command is that people realize... It took a while for people to get on the Archmage's Charm wagon.
It did. It really did.
It did. And all it really took was for some people to realize that you could skew your mana base in a control deck towards blue to where if all of your fetch lands and shock lands are blue, then you can get away with playing Archmage's Charm, and it costs 1 mana less. So now all of a sudden you have a 3-drop instead of a 4-drop, and it can draw 2 cards, whereas Cryptic Command can only draw 1.
Right.
And so that's, I think, probably the biggest reason why we're not seeing it as much. But I will say...
I definitely put in an Archmage's Charm for sure.
I will say in this Grixis control deck I've been playing, I will say that I'm seeing the power of Cryptic Command here. Where Archmage's Charm, to me, I fucking hate countering spells with it.
No,
it's the worst feeling in the world. I'm just
for sure.
canceling something.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Cryptic Command, when you get to that 4 mana and you're not dead, and you've got like a Cryptic Commander,
it's the corner turner.
So good.
It's the corner turner.
It feels so good. You just go counter draw on your shit.
Yeah, no, that was always the playing against control back when Cryptic was the thing it was. It was like as soon as they had Cryptic mana up, it's like, fuck, I know what's happening. And as soon as it's cast, it's like, okay, it's going to be so hard to come around this.
Yeah,
the
especially if
scoring
you're
here.
playing a creature deck, you know,
Yeah,
it's
oh, yeah.
if you don't have a sweeper, it's just like, well, I might be able to
You'll
like
find it.
counter
It'll help
draw,
you find
like
it.
tap your team, draw a
Yeah.
card, then tap your team, draw a card
Yeah.
again, then play Snapcaster Mage, tap your team, draw a card,
Right.
and then you drew another cryptic command, so I bounce my Snapcaster now and
Right.
tap your team, and
So-
now I've got my sweeper, I sweep it, and now I've still got Snapcaster
Right.
Mage plus cryptic again. It's
So for
it
me,
got really ridiculous.
For me with
sure.
Cryptic, I've had the conversation with Isaiah because he was jamming 4 Cryptics forever in different Esper, whatever control decks he was building. And I was like, dude, you just can't play 4. And that's where I've always been with it. With the new post Horizons modern meta, is not that it's gone. It's that you have to adjust accordingly. And I think that like a number of Cryptics is healthy, but you can't 4 is just the wrong number.
Four is too many.
For Cryptic, I think it's like it's not MIA. It's just like the dude that lost his leg. You know,
Yeah.
like you got to operate at half capacity with this thing. You know, like
this
it's not what it was.
This Grixis control deck that I've been working on, and it kind of changed it. Right now, I'm on 2 Archmage's Charm, 3 Cryptics, and it's feeling pretty good. It's feeling pretty. It's the right numbers for this deck. Archmage's Charm is not a surefire turn 3 play in this deck, which is why I only play 2.
Yeah.
And Cryptic really has a place in it. It's actually been feeling good. And one thing I've actually found that I think is helping, the fact that it's not playable, that we're having this conversation about it, actually makes it better.
No, that is a phenomenon in Magic that is a very healthy thing to be aware of, and I like to acknowledge that when you're not playing the things that are the things to play, there is a degree of an edge.
Yeah.
You know, just based on that. You know.
Yeah,
So-
and I feel like as I'm beating opponents with this deck, as I'm running it through leagues, like I know that like part of them are like rolling their are you fucking kidding me? Cryptic command,
yeah.
like in this economy, like what year is this? And
Right.
and like, but at the same time, they're also rolling their eyes because they're like, oh fuck, cryptic command.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah.
know?
Now that's so. I guess to a degree that may not qualify in the gone but not forgotten thing because it is still present to a degree.
It's pretty gone.
No,
I mean, it's pretty gone.
In the broad spectrum of the meta, it definitely is, but it's that one probably shouldn't be as much. I see Lily on the Veil. That's one that should have jumped to my mind.
Yeah.
And that's one I think is good to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think another reason why you don't see it is going back to some of the things we talked about earlier. Tribal decks are gone.
Yeah.
So a lot of the creatures are just not there anymore for it to get value off of it. And its value of what it can kill dies to running 6 already. So
yeah, first off, I just want to say that this is one of my favorite cards ever printed. Anybody that knows me kind of knows that. I'm not a
I was
junk guy.
thinking Liliana the fucking Last Hope. I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh.
That's actually one.
Well, Liliana the Last Hope, I don't know was ever really a great playable modern card.
It wasn't really, no.
Yeah, but Liliana the Veil, I think there's a few problems. One is that something we talked about earlier, there's just a lot more main deck answers. You got Prismatic Ending, you got
Unholy Heat.
Unholy Heat. Another thing is Ragavan having like flash threats makes the Edict worse.
Right.
Another one that's a huge elephant in the room is like black's not a very playable color right now.
No.
And it's a double black and 1 spell.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an issue. And another one is that in a Murktide era, having your opponent discard cards isn't necessarily,
it's
a
not
good
the
thing
greatest.
for you,
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a very true thing, and any card that has incidental putting your opponent's cards in their graveyard, I think is just kind of rough. And has been rough for a while.
Yeah.
It's been rough for a long time. It was rough before. It's been rough since Delve was even a thing in general, but it's also
Yeah, I mean, you got people got like things like Cruxa and stuff.
Yeah, no,
like,
Cruxa is huge. You might run across a Reanimator deck.
Yeah.
Like, it's fringy, but it's still there.
Yeah.
There's been more things brought.
Yeah, it's really awkward against like when like Living End might be like the number one deck in Modern.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like that's kind of awkward.
No, there's
Like,
so much more. Yeah,
your...
almost everybody has some degree of synergy with a graveyard. So a thing that fills their graveyard, and you don't have much outside. Like when you do fill their graveyard for them, and you don't have any actual interaction with their graveyard, it's kind of fucking rough. You know, that's not the best thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And the Edict also is less good than it was because of these other cards. A lot of the things that the Edict was important against aren't present, so the Edict is kind of whatever. Yeah. You know, so her removal mode is very much turned off.
Yeah, and so going a little deeper, and part of it's just like we've talked about, like why Jund is not really the deck, and I think it's mostly due to black being shit. But I commented, Liliana the Veil is actually like one of my favorite cards ever printed, and I'm not a Jund guy at all. I'm more of a control guy, but I've always kind of like doing these like Dimir style control decks. I think my favorite card combination of all time is I really like decks that, like, my favorite decks that I've ever played in Modern were like 4 Liliana, 4 Jace the Mind Sculptor decks. And there's just something about having that combination on the board where I can brainstorm and keep the shittiest card to discard.
Yeah.
Where, like, I'm getting up on cards while discarding a shit card every turn.
Right.
While you're depleting your hand. And I've always kind of liked that combo. And that's something, you know, like, for that strategy, the fact that Jace the Mind Sculptor is not really that great anymore, then, you know, it's kind of hard to have a sidekick there, too.
Yeah. And again, going back to Unholy Heat,
it just deals with it.
She just, I mean, there isn't a walker that card doesn't just answer.
Yeah. And 3's just a little slow, right?
Like, no, it is slow. Yeah. By now, it's way too slow.
Like, it might have 3 1-drops on the table at that point. You play Liliana, or even think about like Hammer Time, right? Like, you can't, like, if you play that on turn 3, they're drawing a card most likely.
Yeah,
you know,
probably. No, exactly. And then they're going to edict away some fucking. If you do edict,
it's like you got an Ornithopter. Congratulations.
Or something. Yeah, there's just nothing.
And they have no hand to, you know, to discard to anyway, right? Like they've dumped most of their shit at that point. Yeah. So
or can unload at instant speed in response to that.
Really unfortunate. Love the card. She's a sexy bitch, especially in that card.
And I do want to say that I think that some of these cards have real potential to swing, you know, to swing back up.
Oh yeah.
Given certain circumstances, and I think she's definitely going to be one that does.
We've talked about Bob. I think Bob's the biggest one.
Yeah.
Liliana's.
I could see her now being more of a sideboard.
She does see some playability, right? Like, I know Aspiring Spike's been huge on a deck that plays a couple copies, like a Rakdos mid-range kind of rock deck,
right?
And, like she's seen some playability,
but it's not the heyday.
To me, of all the cards we've talked about, and all the cards we're gonna talk about, the only clear path is Bob to me. Dark Confidant will be back.
Yeah.
Unless they just never ban Ren and 6, which I can't believe that will never happen. I just don't believe that at all.
I don't want to, dude. In my heart of hearts, I just feel that's so fucking terrible.
You don't want to ban Ren and 6?
No, that it would not be banned. The idea that he wouldn't be banned.
You don't want to live in a world where it's not banned?
That's terrible. That's like
that
is just the worst thing ever.
Like we said earlier, dream scenario, ban Ren and 6, ban Mishra's Bobble. Of that, we've been talking about it for a while.
We are, dude. We've been beating a dead horse, really. We honestly have. Everybody's probably like, shut the fuck up, guys. We know.
I don't think they're ever going to ban Mishra's Bobble. Like, I just have, like, there's never, whenever they do these ban announcements, like, yeah, we're watching this, nobody ever mentions Mishra's Bobble.
I know.
It's like a silent assassin, man. It's getting away with murder over here.
It is. It absolutely is. They banned every other free spell that does anything like what it does.
I'm still not sure that, like, Lurrus could just be okay if Mistress Popple didn't
No, it
exist.
would be. Lurrus would be just.
It
I'm
could
so
just be okay.
dude. I was so mad. Like I get it. I accepted it. But god damn it, I love playing that cat. I love that fucking card.
Now, I think the cat can fuck off regardless, but
Dude, it was so much worse. It would be so much worse without him.
It would be
he
so
would
much
be
worse.
fine without that free value. That card would be just whatever.
Yeah,
because it's a perfectly fair card on its own. The problem, but I know, I agree. I do agree with you because like it should have. If it were to happen, man, like when do they pull the trigger? Because there's been every reason for 2 years now to pull that goddamn trigger, and they've just chose not to. So maybe it's never going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's just not good.
They've given us no indication that they've even ever considered it. So
Yeah.
I tend to think that one is less likely to happen. But Wrenn and 6, I'm pretty sure is going to happen at some point. It's just going to. The biggest problem with Wrenn and 6. I don't want to get too much into ban talk tonight, but like to me, the biggest thing with Wrenn and 6 is, so far they haven't really acknowledged that like. They're like, well, the most played deck plays Wrenn and 6, but it's only 10% of the meta. It's like, yeah, but like, there's this other deck that plays Wrenn and 6 that's another 8%, and this other one's another 7%,
Sure,
another one
sure.
is 6%.
Yeah.
And if you look at all those decks, they're really the same fucking deck.
Yeah, they are.
You
for
know,
sure.
like,
Yeah.
there's a core card, and like there's like 3 flex spots, and the 3 flex spots might change the color wheel on the deck a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same goddamn
fucking deck. So I think one thing that would probably be justification for not banning it is the cards that we've been talking about that have made so many other things unplayable. And I think that's what they tried to do with Modern Horizons 2 especially, is print cards. You can print as powerful a card as you want to because they printed as powerful interaction as they could have.
Yeah.
So I think in their mind, as far as our design team, that's the rationale. That's what makes it okay. It's because, we got prismatic ending, got unholy heat, got these things that just answer these things. It's just that easy, Should be. But the problem is those decks get to play those things too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's funky.
So I have some little bevy of like some smaller blue cards that I want to talk about. But first, John, before we get to those, you're white. This is me calling you white.
Don't call me white.
Why don't you tell me and the listeners, why is Path to Exile no longer playable?
Yeah, I'm a bad guy to ask that question because I still play it.
Yeah, I know you do. But that's not the question that I asked.
So,
and
you know what?
And we defined them. We defined them playable.
uh,
The fact that you're playing it doesn't mean that it's playable.
So
right?
there's a reason why I play it.
Yeah.
That reason is Murktide.
Yeah.
Because for white, if you're just playing white and you don't have some of these other cards, there's not very many things that answer that goddamn card.
I mean, Solitude. Solitude's a pretty good one.
Sure, but if it doesn't line up, you need to answer that goddamn card.
Yeah.
So I play a couple because of that. Why it's flatly unplayable? Dude, I don't ever think that it has been. I don't think it ever has been. I think the reason that people would say that it is because of the efficiency, like everything's so low mana cost that like giving them a land makes a big difference. But I kind of argue that because everything's so hyper efficient anyway, giving them a land doesn't make a big difference. So, I don't know. I think Path is fine in specific matches.
Well, luckily for you, being in this awkward position of being the guy who still plays Path, the one guy on the planet,
Yeah.
I've actually got the answer.
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly why Path to Exile is not playable.
Why's that?
All right. So, before we had this little Modern Horizons rush, where we got this influx of cards, you can really point to 2 places where Path to Exile was really playable. And this was in white aggressive decks.
Yeah.
That was playing it as their one of removal to just get shit out of the way.
Sure.
And then blue-white control.
Right.
And as somebody who played a lot of blue-white control, I can tell you the Path was always really awkward because you'd end up playing against decks like Panza.
Sure.
And they play like Arbor Elf on turn 1, where they tell you bolt a bird. Well,
you can't path that.
Path is not bolting a bird, right?
No,
and so you'd end up having to play these weird cards like Oust.
Sure.
You know, and then you'd end up dying to something coming at your face with an Oust in hand that you couldn't use because it's sorcery speed. So they fixed that problem for blue-white control by giving you Prismatic Ending to deal with the early stuff, and then a free card.
Free.
Yeah, and Solitude to deal with everything else, and you're never giving your opponent extra lands.
Right.
Which is the real issue in a control deck.
Sure.
You don't really want to give them land.
No.
And so, like, Path to Exile was a 1-mana answer that you didn't really want to use until later in the game.
Right.
So, with the more aggressive decks, Prismatic Ending is just a better answer for those decks because they also don't want to ramp their opponent into
the thing that helps them stabilize.
So to me, Prismatic Ending is just a better answer for those particular decks. So I think it's the combination. I think what it is just if you look at where
they just printed better cards.
They printed better cards
is the big thing
for the decks that it was needed in.
Yeah. No, and I'm not going to disagree with that because that is absolutely why it's unplayable is because they just printed better versions. But I still think that it has a degree of a place. And the one thing that I like about being a guy that's a creature-based player, the one thing I love about Path, when you're playing against control deck, all of your removal is garbage.
Yeah.
It's all garbage.
Yep.
Path, playing against control deck, as awkward as it is, and everybody would shit on the play to make it, but it still does something.
Yeah, get you a land to get
when
you
get Supreme Verdict or something, you can fucking ramp and growth yourself. It's not completely dead. And, like, that would be at such a low premium to most people, and it is just an incidental thing. It's not
you're
great.
still siding it out, right? Like,
no, you absolutely would, but it's not dead in the main, and that's...
Yeah.
I do not like having any card ever that is just fucking dead.
Yeah.
I hate that. And so, for me, I've always liked Path for that reason, is because it can do something with it.
Yeah.
And it's very much player-based, because I'm a grindy player. I'm a grindy fucking player. So, I'm, in my mind, I'm already like, we're going to go the long road with this match anyway. So me giving you an extra land, in my mind, because the player that I am is like, I don't give a fuck. Like, we're going to grind this out. So to me, it's not that big of a deal to give my opponent an extra land because I'm already planning on making this thing take 1,000,000 fucking years and just making it a goddamn bloodbath of a match, you know. But no, that's exactly what it is. There's way more efficient things. I have been playing my mono white deck. That's not quite mono white, and I've settled on 2 paths, and it's just because Murktide, man. It's just because Murktide, because that cocksucking card, dude. Like, there's so few good ways to answer it. Like, Solitude is the way to answer it, but they have all the best counter magic available to them now. So it's really hard to get a Solitude through all the time against that deck specifically. So for me, I have those 2 paths just for that, man. Just to button that up.
I've actually found that Murktide is like pretty easy to get a Solitude in because like a lot of their disruption is stuff like Spell Pierce.
No, I get that. Dude, when I play against people, like, they just always fucking have it. Every time I was playing against a dude.
Well, part of it, you're playing a mono white deck, so you have no other form of disruption to. You don't have any hand disruption.
For sure.
They
I
can
have
hold
to,
it up, you know.
Well, and they do. And my disruption is putting pressure on, which I have ways to do that. But dude, it's still just player variance, man. Variance is a real thing. Like I had a match the other night where dude had a Murktide, and I was like, I had my Solitude in hand, and he had 2 cards left, and I go to I pass turn, he fucking considers. He's got 1 card left in hand. And I'm like, if I don't do it now, he's going to have it next turn.
And it's just a counter.
So I fucking do it while he considers on the stack, and of course it's a goddamn counter spell.
Yeah.
You know, it just happens.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I agree though. I'm not disagreeing that Path is mostly unplayable. I think that it's got better spaces in the meta than people think it does, but that's because of the player that I am.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
There's
we define unplayable, right? Unplayable isn't whether or not you can actually play it.
Sure.
You know,
it's you probably ought not to be, but
yeah, exactly. And the fact is, if you can play, you know, you're not playing against it. You know, when you're playing online, you're not playing against it. And that's what makes it unplayable to me.
Well, and the thing too is like the deck that I'm talking about. I'm playing all these cards.
Yeah,
I'm playing 4 prismatic endings. I'm playing 4 solitudes. I'm playing fucking path. I'm playing every piece of white removal there is to play.
Yeah,
so
you're not losing the creature decks.
No.
So so I said before we got into that, I had a few blue cards that I wanted to talk about, and this next one is honestly the one fucking reason that Chris needed to be here, because, and of course he screwed the pooch and he's fired. But so this one is kind of interesting to me, because when they announced that they were bringing Counterspell into Modern, Chris and I both had the same thought,
right?
Which was, let's buy all the copies of Spell Snare,
right? For sure,
you know, because that was my first thought. If it turns into like we're going to be doing Counter Wars now, Spell Snare is going to go up in value quite a bit. And that never happened. And not only did that not happen, Spell Snare is non-existent in the format.
Yeah.
Completely non-existent.
So, dude, that actually, it's really crazy, because post-COVID, when we got in the thick of things with stream, how many weeks did we say, like, God damn it, where are the Spell Snares? And when we did see them, it was like, fuck yeah, it did so much work, you know, like, it's kind of an enigma.
Yeah, and I think the main reason, the thing we weren't seeing when we were talking about that, because we were saying this off the back of Modern Horizons spoilers, Modern Horizons 2 spoilers, and what we weren't really foreseeing is how that set would change the landscape of Modern to make it about 1-drops.
Sure.
And that's what happened. Like like Spell Snare is a 1-drop that kills 2-drops, but a lot of decks are playing a whole bunch of 1-drops and then 3-drop. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, an 8-drop that you cast for 2 mana that can't be spell pierced. You know, and I think that dynamic hurt it a lot. The whole prospect of that being a thing.
Well, and it was always already like it's just a solid ass sideboard card for specific decks.
Yeah,
and so
still good against burn.
Yeah. I mean, there's still relevance.
And another thing, Spell Snare has always been really good against other Snapcaster decks. You're seeing a lot of control decks going away from Snapcaster so that they can play the really shitty. By the way, if you're a control player, don't play the goddamn companion. It doesn't fucking do anything.
Yeah.
Play Snapcaster Mage. Get extra ops.
Right.
You win the game by drawing free cards with opt in your graveyard.
Yeah,
not
having
by getting a free 3/2 that makes your lifelinker, like it might gain you an extra life or something.
No, I mean if you're playing a control deck, like having the threat of the just Solitude as the game closing threat is more than enough, right? I'd have to think so. Like, why would you need that cute card?
Yeah, like, you got all kinds of shit, man. You got Planeswalkers.
Yeah.
And to me, you got Hall of the Storm Giants, which you run your opponent out of resurces. Mm-hmm. That thing's going to end the game in 2 turns. Like Hall of the Storm Giant every time ends the game in 2 turns.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do 6 damage to themselves with their fucking lands. You know.
Oh yeah. No, absolutely.
So to me, Spell Snare was a big one that I wanted to talk about, and it brought to mind a couple more. One of them is obvious, and one of them is less obvious. So they are, you can say the cards that Counterspell replaced. So the obvious one is Mana Leak, right? Like we're not seeing Mana Leak played anymore because Counterspell completely replaced it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no reason.
But you know, I played a lot of decks that had Mana Leak and Remand.
Right.
But we're not seeing any decks that have Counterspell and Remand.
Right.
And part of that's due to what we just said about it being about 1-drops, right? And like, if the format's all about 1-drops, then Remand looks a lot worse.
No, it for sure, and just the power of the cards overall. Like, delaying a card isn't as good when it's just completely ridiculously powerful when it comes down.
That's true, but when we're seeing things like, even these one. Like when we're seeing things like Murktide Regent.
Right.
Remand seems really good against that card.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the most played deck in the format. And the second most played deck in the format is the four color, Wrenn and 6 deck, which plays a lot of expensive things, plays a lot of free things that pitch a card.
Right.
Remand seems kind of interesting there, too.
No,
if you're pitching a card to try to play, a Fury, and
Yeah.
I remand it to your hand, you have to pitch another card if you even have it.
Right.
That seems kind of good.
Yeah.
And then I think the third most played deck is Living End. I can't think of anything more nightmarish as a Living End player than having my Living End remanded.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck am I going to do with that?
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure.
So to me, I'm actually kind of surprised.
Now, I think some of these things are, if you go down the list and really look at all the cards that have lost favor, I definitely think there's going to be a good amount of them that are surprising that they so utterly lost favor. I mean, even Spell Snare still is a degree surprising because there are so many two mana things. Like, it shouldn't be as off. People shouldn't be as off as they are. And I definitely agree with you for the Remand, for sure, that it's
not playable because nobody plays it. Nobody plays it at all.
Sure.
But, like, if you actually start going through the metagame, like, looking at the top lists, like, it's hard to find one where it's just not good.
Yeah, no, I agree, yeah. Now, there are going to be some weird things happening because I agree with you completely. Remand looks, if you know how to play it, and I think maybe that's part of it, is that it's a card that is, we're getting a big influx of new players in the game, and Remand is a card that looks less good to inexperienced players, and maybe that's part of it. Is that with the influx of green players, they just are off of it because it's not an obviously just powerful card. You have to know how to play it. Know when to play it.
To me, Remand is in the camp of cards that you will see again. I think there will be a time when you will see, the 8 count counterspell deck that's playing 4 counterspells and 4 remands, and that's going to be. I'm going to love that shit, dude. I'm going to fucking love that shit.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you, though. I don't see there's any huge reason for it to be off of it, but I do think that
the only good reason is the fact that there's so many 1-drop threats, and if you try to, play a Dragon Rage Channeler and I'm fucking staring at a Remand, and, you're still going to cast Dragon Rage Channeler.
Sure. Well, and that's where it's a matter of how to play it, when to play it,
They need the bobble. They ban the bobble. All of a sudden, you're not playing Dragon Rage Channelers. So.
Yeah. No, exactly. Or, if you are, it is no kind of a threat. There's nothing that you would even give a shit.
I wouldn't say that. And here's another thing, Dashner. The one place where I think you always saw Remand was in the blue-red control decks, or the Blue Moon decks. And the thing that happened with the Blue Moon decks is they got Fire Ice, right? Which Fire Ice is kind of they played Mana Leak and Remand, and now they play Counterspell and Fire Ice. So it's kind of the same thing. Once again, Modern Horizons 2 cards, because even after Twin, blue-red control still existed in the form of Blue Moon, and that's where Remand, I think, saw the most play. And you just don't see it now. They play Fire Ice and regular Counterspell, and that's it. But I assure you, man, it'll be back. It'll be back. It's really good. People forget how fucking good. People never even knew how good the card was.
Not really,
like
no.
like targeting my own spells with a remand and a counter battle is like my favorite thing on the planet to do. God, it feels so good.
Yeah.
It's like next level shit.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've got one more that was a kind of a main deck staple. And then I've got a couple of sideboard ones, and then I think we'll wrap it up. So this next one, I was sitting here making the list, and this one, I don't like. It came to mind late, and I was just like, "Oh yeah, obvious." All right, so John, tell me why nobody plays Field of Ruin.
I suppose that one's. I've pondered on that myself while I've tried to play it in decks and then have just taken it out of decks.
It's an interesting one because it was in like every deck.
It was, and I would argue that it is the best version of that card that has been printed in Modern. I think so. I think it's better than the others as far as just like you can put it anywhere. You could argue for Ghost Quarter if you have the right deck. You could argue for Attack Edge if you have the right deck. But flatly, Field of the Ruin was the best one.
Ghost Quarter was always better for the the white weenie decks. Like where you don't want to pay 2 mana to search your own library.
For sure. But, no, I have debated that, and I think the only thing I can think really is just that it. So the big mana decks aren't as prominent. Tron's gone mostly.
Yeah, Tron seems less good. Yeah, for sure.
And also you have the other strength of it is dealing with like maybe man lands. There are better answers for those. The lands that really need to be answered can be answered with other things outside of like destruction of land.
Sure.
And that's a big thing. It's just
the Sage you didn't help.
no, exactly. Like you have, it's just more cards that have been printed recently that have just outdated it. Really, is the thing. And the speed of it.
Yeah.
Like you cannot have any interruption in a mana base at all. Yeah. At this point in Modern.
Couple things I thought, like the biggest thing I thought of were color requirements, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're playing counterspell, it's kind of awkward to play a land that doesn't tap for any color at all.
Yeah.
And then you think like the 4-color decks, you're trying to play a 4-color card on turn 4.
Right.
That's really awkward.
Well, and those decks are already doing such powerful things that they don't even need that anyway. Because, if you're playing a 4-color elemental deck, like, you have the power regardless. You don't need to give a shit about answering whatever thing. And, again, Beseiju is there for those decks, too. But, no, it is the speed of the format with every card being printed at just an astronomical power level. Every time a card is printed, these hedge cards, these cards that let you hedge against certain matches they just matter less and less.
Yeah, they matter less. It's just crazy because and to say it was played in every deck is just not correct. But
no,
it was played in almost every deck.
Well, I do want to just reiterate that it is the best version. It feels the best, man. Because I love being able to, like, especially talk about a fatal push. I love being able to field and then have push up off that mana. Like, I love that. I love being able to field, have a 1 mana efficient spell up, follow it up. But the relevance is just not there like it used to be.
And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, right? So the relevance is like you kind of need to have double colored mana.
Yeah, like, most of the time,
you can't have like uncolored mana. You can't have waste mana type shit in your mana base.
Right.
There's less of a reason to have it because you're not facing Tron 3 times per league.
No, exactly.
And your point about the fatal push, nobody's playing 4-drops.
Exactly.
Nobody's playing a fucking 4-drop that I need to fatal push.
You're not fatal pushing shit.
They're either playing 1-drops, which fatal push already kills, or they're playing 8-drops, which it never kills.
Yeah,
so
exactly. No, it is just not where.
That's what I found interesting when I was thinking of cards for the list. That was just the most interesting one to me, just because it wasn't that long ago where it was in every deck, and now it's just it really is unplayable.
Well, we moved past the point of any lane, like having lanes to care about. Because with Tron being dead, like you don't really care about your opponent's lands anymore.
No.
So you don't have time to.
And you could make the case that man lands have become less playable.
They are, yeah.
You
because
know,
they're too slow.
Yeah.
And if you have to answer a man land, you have March. Or something like that. You know?
And they're also too slow, right? Like, so
that's a big thing.
I'm not trying to fight like your fucking Ink Moth Nexus with my Fielder Ruin. That seems like not a great way to go about it, you know?
No. No, it is definitely too fucking slow. Relevance there is a big thing.
So I have one more. I said I was going to get to a couple sideboard cards. I have another one that was kind of like fringe worthy that I thought of, and a lot of this has to do with Fury, but it really not, because this was kind of a thing before Fury existed. But it's kind of the semi sweepers, like the Pyroclasm effects, and I guess most specifically, I'm talking about Anger of the Gods.
Yeah,
you know, and that one's interesting to me because nobody's gonna play Anger of the Gods just because Fury exists, and it probably does a better job. But I will say that I have seen a lot of board states in Modern where Anger of the Gods just would have looked like a boss. Because there are a lot of X3 or lesses in the format.
And Graveyard Synergies still matter.
And Graveyard Synergies do still matter.
Yeah, no, that is one. Yeah, it fell the fuck off, but I haven't seen any. Yeah, when you really look. I mean, the reason is because there's just like the Omnath decks, you know. And there's things that...
The reason it fell off is because it's just not as good as it used to be.
Sure.
And it was never a heavily played card to
begin with. It was just a good sideboard card for specific matches, but I think that's... I guess it's just the relevance thing. Like, it just has to... Can you afford to worry about this? There's so many new things that you have to worry about, like, you know, the Cascade deck that makes the Rhinos. You know, that doesn't do shit there. It's the... Like, yeah, it has relevance against Omnath decks. And it really does, because everything other than Omnath, it does kill. But they're left with the goddamn Omnath. So, what the fuck does that matter? You know, they're just going to rebuild as much as they want to. The threats that it doesn't kill are so fucking powerful that there's just not even a reason to worry about it, I guess, to some degree. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. So. And one more I think we should cover before we get to a couple sideboard cards is you brought up Gurmag Angler earlier.
Right.
And this just goes to, this gives us a chance to talk about something that you and I have talked about, you know, sitting at a bar a couple times. But for the most part, Gurmag Angler is no longer playable. And that's just, you know, the main reason is, you know, they just made a better card.
Yeah, they did. They just flatly made a better card.
Which, so John and I had a conversation. So it used to be Gurmag Angler wasn't played, and everybody played Tassiger when they first came out with Fate Reforged. Tassiger was the card that was played all over the place, and all of a sudden it switched, and people were no longer playing Tassiger. Instead, they were playing Gurmag Angler. And John and I have had this discussion many a times, and it's really kind of interesting because if you just look at the two cards, Tassiger is the much more interesting, much more techy, much more flexible card.
Yeah, it just does.
However,
what the Gurmag does.
However, if you've got like say Grixis Death Shadow, the old school Grixis Death Shadow is the best deck in the format, and somebody shows up at a tournament where the meta is everybody's playing, you know, Tassigers as their delve threat, but then one guy at one tournament, for whatever reason, maybe it's just budget reasons, shows up with Gurmag Anglers instead of Tassigers, and everybody in the room realizes that, fuck, these Gurmag Anglers are better than my Tassiger because I can't attack through a Gurmag Angler.
Sure.
And I can't properly block a Gurmag Angler with a Tassiger. And so it ends up being this weird thing where one person in one tournament plays the wrong card at that time. And now, since one person did it, everybody has to do it.
Yeah.
Because Tassiger is a better card than Gurmag Angler. It is. It delves cheaper.
Yeah.
Like, it delves for one less card.
Right.
And it has card advantage built into it.
Yeah.
But if all your opponents are playing Gurmag Angler, you can't play Tassiger.
Yeah. Because you're just going to get fucking rolled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that happens in Magic. And
Math is the importance of simple math in this game, as complex as it is hilarious.
Yeah, 4 is smaller than 5.
Yeah, well, and like 1 mana. Like
Yeah,
the difference
yes.
of 1 mana versus
Yeah.
2 mana is huge. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
it's-
so that goes the Cleansing Wildfire thing.
Yeah.
They literally printed the same thing as Cleansing Wildfire at 3 mana, and it was nothing. Nobody gave a shit. Printing
Oh, yeah.
Cleansing Wildfire at 2 mana, same exact card,
Yeah.
and it fucking, it took off. Everybody was doing this brew, that brew,
Yeah.
this thing, that thing, like.
Now it's being back to it should be on this list. It's
Yeah,
unplayable.
no, exactly.
Yeah,
it doesn't do anything now. It's just
You can't
unnecessary.
pay 2 mana to do nothing.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing you're allowed to do in Magic. So
No.
I just had like a couple sideboard cards. The biggest one, and I'll just throw it out here because we just talked about Field of Ruin, but Fulminator Mage is a card you used to see.
Yeah,
you would
a
see
lot.
you would see it in sideboards a lot, and part of that is what we already talked about: Tron not being a thing,
Right.
less of a need.
Well, it's a combination of a lot of the things we talked about, because it's like it's relevance, but it's also they printed a better card, the Obsidian Charmaw,
Yeah,
that
you
thing.
can make that case. Yeah.
So like it got upgraded, and it's less relevant because even Obsidian Charmaw is kind of whatever. Like
yeah,
people aren't really playing that because the decks aren't there for you to care about.
sure.
You know?
I don't see that as a direct like. It's a better card against like exactly Tron, but I consider Fulminator Mage to be maybe a little bit more of a flexible card
Oh, it's way more flexible
because I can bring it in like in a control matchup.
Yeah, no,
you know.
well, and you can do way more with it.
yeah,
You can
no,
because it being a sacrifice.
yeah,
You can K command it all day. You
exactly.
Can, you can
the
do a lot
K-command
more with it.
interaction is what I've always thought.
Yeah, which I don't know how much K command is played anymore. I think that could be.
It's
maybe on the
definitely
list.
down. I'm playing 4 of it in the Grixis deck that I'm playing, and it's Abrupt Decay is another good one. Yeah, although
Yeah, that is a good one.
Abrupt Decay also.
Replicate actually that felt really weird from the get because it
Abrupt
almost.
Decay has never been as good in Modern as it was in
Yeah,
Legacy.
no, it
it
almost-
just never has. Been.
That's what I've always thought about Abrupt Decay is it became immediately a legacy card
Yeah,
and not a modern card. Like
Yeah.
there's so many other things it did what it needed to do in modern, and the counter that can't be countered just didn't matter as much.
yeah, that is a good one, Mike. But I do agree with John. I do think that card. Well, it did. Like you're right. It doesn't see play, but it never really saw a lot of play.
No. And as soon as Assassin's Trophy came around, people just played that.
Yeah, and that card's dead too. Like
Yeah.
Assassin's Trophy's kind of definitely got the
No.
exile problem.
Yeah, that was a flash in
Now
the
you can
pan.
just play Beseju and take a land.
Well,
suck,
I think Path is way better than Assassin's Trophy.
yeah. So I think the last one I really want to hit here is this is probably historically my favorite sideboard card of all time,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about Stony Silence.
Oh, well, it is. So I would say that it's not gone. Stony Silence has been redefined. Like, you have to know.
I think it's atrocious, John. It's my favorite sideboard card of all time.
Okay, so
I could not imagine putting it in a deck
So
right now. I
the,
could
the
not
thing
imagine.
that I will
think it's a
say
mistake.
the thing that I will say is that with all the considerations of the things you talked about, it does one thing. It's good against. Well, I think it's fine. It's just it's too narrow now.
That's the problem.
That's the problem. It's too narrow.
The real problem with Stony Silence, it's still as good against Tron as it ever was.
The only other thing that it's good against is Hammer.
But the thing is, it's not very good against Hammer. The problem with Stony Silence is it's not very good against artifact decks.
Not anymore now.
The way that the artifact decks work,
Yeah.
they're not activating abilities of
Yeah.
their artifacts. They're just, like the Affinity deck just needs to have artifacts and it does its thing.
Yeah.
Hammer is an equipment deck that doesn't need to actually equip anything.
It depends on the match how it's played. Like it could be relevant, but if
It's
you
very rarely relevant.
well, I know that's what I'm saying. If you could play the match in a way that it was relevant, you're probably already winning.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Agreed.
That's the problem with it. Yeah, no, it's lost its relevance in a huge way. Huge way. Kataki is the best artifact sideboard card now, really.
Yeah. Not good against Tron.
No, but again, Tron's not there.
Yeah.
So, like...
like this is not a dead card, but just when it comes to sideboarding against Tron, I actually think that Chalice of the Void is a sneaky good card in that match. Like,
it is.
Chalice of the Void is really, really good against Tron right now.
Well, it always has been, man.
Really a big man.
It always
in general.
has been. It has been.
Chalice of the Void on one. Jose, they have. Okay, I played a lot of Tron, right? I'm not proud of it, but I did. And I do know that Tron plays 18 main deck 1-drops.
Yeah.
That makes Chalice of the Void really fucking good.
Yeah, no, dude, Chalice
really fucking good.
Chalice is as good now as it was against Tron. Now it's better now because now you get to play a deck where you play Prismatic Endings and you play Solitudes and you can just like main board Chalice. Yeah. That's one thing that's fucked up about the format is we got to a point where we can just have decks that main board Chalice that it doesn't make any fucking sense for, you know?
Also, while I'm praising Chalice of the Void, it's also sneaky good against Amulet Titan. It's just good against big mana in general.
Yeah, no, it's...
playing it for 0 against Amulet Titan does a lot of work.
Yeah.
Anyway, off of...
not for that, but yeah, Stone and Silence definitely fucking sucks. It's not...
It's so bad. It's so bad.
Well,
like, I was watching a video the other day and like, you know... The player like had it in his sideboard. I'm like, what's that even for? And he brought it in twice, and it looked fucking atrocious both times.
I mean, at the end of the day, too, like at this point, you could just play Collector Oof and have a 2/2 body that does the same thing.
He wasn't playing green, so that wasn't
sure.
But I mean, like that effect just doesn't really matter all that much.
It doesn't. It only matters if you can make it matter that they have to pay for equipping and hammer time. That's pretty much where Stone and Silence is at.
Any deck that you could put that in. You could probably just play Engineered Explosives and
it's just as good.
Better.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Which I think Engineered Explosives might be the most criminally underplayed card in all of Modern.
I agree. I agree wholly, dude. It's a house. It's a house.
It's
for sure.
It's good against a lot of shit. It's good against a lot of shit for sure. All right, so that kind of takes out my whole list.
Yeah. No, I would so one thing that I thought to talk about was just the decks that, and I mean, it kind of wraps it up in the cards. And we have wrapped it up to a degree. The decks that aren't played, but you know, the big ones. Tron is unplayable. I
wouldn't say Tron is unplayable. It's as bad as it's been in a while, but I still think that on average Tron. I do play against it a lot.
Well, I think that people will never. People will never give up something that's so intrinsically powerful. You know? Like, they'll never... And I think that's why you'll still see people playing Aether Vial tribal decks. Because it is intrinsically powerful. If the variance matches up, it will do powerful things for you. You know? And Tron is the same way. If the variance matches up and you get a good match, then it's gonna... You're gonna fucking host somebody. It's just gonna be super powerful. But yeah, I mean, there's a handful of decks that we don't see anymore. We talked about Rack earlier off stream. There's a few. Death and Taxes would be cool to see, but it's just not really. It's just too slow. Like everything.
There's a lot of X1s. That's an issue.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue with that one.
With that one,
a lot of X1s
for sure.
And it doesn't really play like
dude.
Humans plays the dude that makes everything else bigger.
So,
and it doesn't do that.
Gone for Not. You asked me what I would talk about. Gone but Not Forgotten. Thalia, man.
Yeah.
Thalia doesn't mean shit anymore.
Yeah.
She doesn't do.
And part of that is the two decks that it's best in are not really playable.
Right. And well, I mean, just even in the vacuum,
the fact that Prismatic Ending is a pretty clean answer at mana.
No, I mean, with some of those things not considered, just Thalia in a vacuum to a degree was already fairly powerful.
Yeah.
Like, there was a time in Modern where Thalia did a very impactful thing just by being Thalia. And now, it's just gone. It just doesn't even matter. Like, the non-creature spells that she can hate on, the decks that play those non-creature spells have a clean answer to just mop her up. regardless. Like, it sucks, dude, to
I
have a
would-
human deck without Thalia.
I would, however, put her in the category of cards that will come back.
Oh,
given
yeah.
some
Oh, yeah.
bannings. Like Ren
Yeah, I
6
agree.
doesn't exist. Thalia seems a lot better.
No, she does. That is the biggest killer of her.
Yeah.
Is Ren and 6 for sure. And that's for me as a tribal, a human guy, dude. I was the human guy for years. It sucks that my tribe is completely dead because of that one card. And it is that one goddamn card.
Yeah.
It is that one goddamn card that makes humans dead. And it pisses me off. Because before, there's an honest trade. Like, my shit's gonna die.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, I know what's gonna happen. I'm an aggro dude. I'm playing dudes. My shit's gonna die. You're gonna kill it. I'm costing you a card to kill my things.
Yeah.
And that's a fair exchange. When you just have this fucking thing sitting on the battlefield that just kills all my things, yeah, I can't really come back from that. That's pretty fucked up. That's not okay.
Yeah, it's pretty awkward. I was watching a streamer the other day on my lunch break, and they were playing an Is It Murktide deck, and like, dude's got like, you know, like they always do, monkey on turn 1, and it's like he's like on the draw, and his opponent plays like, you know, like fucking fetch for a stomping ground on turn 1. He's like, fuck. It's like, I don't want to run this monkey out here so you can get rid of 6. And it's just like, if the monkey guy is annoyed because of this other thing, because Ren and 6, like maybe it is a problem. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's keeping the monkey in check. I don't know.
It's not, though. Not really. Nothing's keeping the monkey in check. The monkey's the monkey. I honestly think the monkey's fine. I don't think the monkey is problematic at all. I think the monkey is too good of a card.
It's too good of a card. That's the best way to describe it.
It's too good of a card, but I don't think it's
got one too many words on it.
Oh, it's got a paragraph too many words on it. But
I think it's got one too many words, and that word is dash.
Right. No, it's too good, but it's not format warping. It's not breaking.
Yeah.
Like, it can be answered in very honest ways. You know, the problem where we're at, the problem we've come to in Magic is that there's not enough even fair exchange. You know, like you have, like I said, as the aggro player, I know as the aggro player, I'm going to take lumps. I'm going to lose my guys. The idea is that we have an actual exchange. It costs you cards to answer my cards, you know, and it goes back to the 2-for-1.
Yeah, if you're playing a bunch of X1s, Ren and 6 is just like a 3-for-1.
Exactly.
Know, a
4, 5,
yeah.
6. It keeps going up,
yeah.
you know, and that's what we need to get away from. We need to get away, like, a 2-for-1 is good positioning, and with the appropriate deck building and knowledge of the game, you'll get your 2-for-1s. Because of your knowledge and skill in the game, you know, that's how it should work, you know, and the people that are going to play a strategy that can get 2-for-1 can go into the game with the knowledge of how they'll get 2-for-1 and how to mitigate those losses, you know. But we've come to a point in the game where that's just kind of out the window. There are just specific cards stopping that from happening. So the real, like, strategy, the deep level strategy that exists in Magic is now crumbling because of flat out power creep in cards.
Yeah.
And that's where we need not be, you know, like that's compromising the game's integrity as a whole. So,
yeah, the only other deck, and I know I've brought this one up before, but the deck that's kind of unplayable now is the Heliod combo deck.
Yeah.
And that one to me is,
it was obnoxious too for a minute.
It was arguably the top deck in Modern. And to me, that's all Prismatic Ending. Prismatic Ending just shut that shit down because the thing was those gods, the original gods,
so hard to deal with.
No, you didn't have shit.
Yeah.
There was like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't even good sideboard cards.
Yeah.
Like if you had a sideboard card, you were putting a bad card in your sideboard to deal with that one card. And now everybody just got main deck answers to that, and
Yeah.
it's just not interesting. Like, it's not good. Like,
yeah, no, you just can't play it. And that's
what made that combo so good was that one piece of the combo was kind of unfuckable.
Yeah.
You could not fuck with that thing.
Yeah. No, they have definitely pushed. And I'm playing all the cards that are pushing white in the wrong direction. I'm playing every one of them. But they're pushed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
For sure. Prismatic, Solitude, they're both pushed in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You know? And because it's the saturation of them. Because that was the thing. Like, before, you had Path, which was a good catch-all. You know? But it had its limitations. It had specific limitations. It wasn't good all the time. It was fair in its own design because of that. Because like it did what you needed it to do. But now you just have main board. That's the problem. It's just everything is main board all the time. Everybody just and that you could argue it's healthy to a point, but it just narrows the scope of the game. Naturally.
No, and it keeps going up, man. It's countless, and we could do a whole episode on this probably. But I mean, like shit from Prismatic Ending. I think Dress Down is a big one. Like all of a sudden, like I can just play a main deck card that shuts down your entire strategy. You know. Like,
no, and that's so. And
we
because
got Goober in the chat here, like fucking Bogles, man. Like, yeah, it's got to feel terrible when you can just load up a whole bunch of fucking shit on your Bogle, and then they just dress down.
Well, see, that's the thing. That's the
and,
thing that sucks about that is that, which also, thanks for tuning in, Goober. It's been a while since we heard from you. But with that in mind, particularly, it's like they have to fight through a bunch of prismatic endings to even get anything on their goddamn Bogle, and then you're just like, huh, that doesn't have any abilities.
Yeah,
you know, like. You had to try super hard to even get that cocksucker anywhere, and then they just follow up with that. Like, and it's like some of these cards are healthy, but to a degree. But once it comes down to it, man, like it just narrows the format. It makes it less interesting. All these perfect interactions make it less interesting.
I also don't want to go down like. I mean, we still love Modern. I mean, don't get us wrong. It's the best format there is right now.
And I'll play it till I'm fucking dead. I love this format. Like, I fucking love it. But
don't take our negativity the wrong way. We're just negative people. We're old.
It just needs some grease, man. They just need to slow shit down. You know?
Yeah.
Like, if you just cut out
2 cards. That's all. That's all we're asking.
Cut out 2 cards now, but also reassess Modern Horizons. Reassess Horizon sets. And
they're not going to do that.
I know they're not, but I'm just saying.
About things they could actually do.
Yeah. Well, they can not print anymore or change how they print the next ones.
They can't do that. They can't stop. They can't stop because
they can't
people
stop printing money. I know. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying, though, is that's really
the American economy at work right here.
That's really the problem. Is these sets, because if you take those cards, if you take the Modern Horizons cards out and look at what have just been printed in normal standard sets, there would be no real issues.
Yeah,
there would be none. Not really. Like, we wouldn't have Run 6. we'd have Bobble, but without these other cards that make Bobble fucking retarded, like it would just be what it is. You know, like it's just too pushed.
I mean, they're kind of I mean. Luris wasn't a Horizons thing, you know.
No, but without the Horizon stuff.
Yeah.
You know? Like all the worst that Luris had with other Horizon stuff was Bobble.
Yeah.
Which again, Wizards knows goddamn well that they've already banned every free card that they've printed.
Yeah.
That's not ornamental.
The problem is I don't think they do know. I don't think they look at Bobble and say it's a I don't think it's
I agree.
My fear is that it's not even on their radar. I have a feeling they have like a list of like 10 cards that are like on a watch list, and I feel like Bobble is not on that list. That's my fear.
It's not. That is. I mean, it's true.
I would hope that it would be, but
Well, I mean, again, they let Oko get printed, so who knows? I don't really have any faith in their design team anymore. They let Oko through. So,
I mean,
I don't really have a whole lot of faith in how they design cards at this point because they've screwed the pooch multiple fucking times by now. So I guess we can't even speak on what we would hope to expect them to do because it's kind of a shit show already.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, again, Modern is the best format. I fucking love it. I'll play it. And I will be the asshole playing weird shit. Because it's fun. And that's the first thing Goober said when we started was unplayable decks for fun and not going for the win. It is nice to have fun, you know, and it's nice to... I mean, I like to try to hedge to have some wins. I don't expect to go 3-0. I don't care about going 3-0, but I want to have a good time playing.
Yeah.
And that's why I naturally play really grindy shit. Stuff that's makes for games. I don't play fair cards. I don't want to be like, oh, look, I assembled some fucking Lego pieces and now I win so I can go jerk off in the corner. Like, it's not fun. Like, I want a real game. I want to tit for tat. I want to fucking throw down, you know, if the shit go to time or at least have cool interactions if it doesn't, you know. We need more of that in Magic. And we need people consciously choosing to have a little bit more of that. When it comes to your local scene. When it comes to big tournaments, fucking win. Do what you need to do. For sure. But when it comes to local metas, man, try to make it a good time for everybody.
For sure.
You know, we wanna have a good time. Because there is no good time outside of competitive Magic, because everything outside of competitive Magic is Commander, and Commander is not a good time.
No, it's not. I mean, the people that play it seem to have
They love it somehow.
Yeah, they do.
They really enjoy doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, that's a whole other thing that we've already talked about. We're not going to talk about again.
They think that we're the ones that are fucked. They think that, like, it's weird. Like, not to get off on too much of a tangent, but like I overheard I kind of got thrown into a conversation the other day, and it's just like I don't know. I probably threw too many back and just threw a comment out. I'm like, yeah, like, you're a good enough player to play Modern, but you just don't have the balls. I'm pretty sure I said something to that effect to a Commander player, and like, he's like, oh, I used to play competitive. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, I didn't say that, but in my mind, like, no, you did.
Maybe you played a handful of times.
Then he went into this, like, he went down this rabbit hole. It's like, oh, well, Modern's just too expensive to play. I'm like, no,
I hate that.
Don't fucking start with
that.
No. Don't fucking. All right, it's like $1,000. Like, one deck's $1,000. How many Commander decks are fucking $3,000?
That is the stupidest thing. And I'm gonna be super unapologetic about this on stream. If you're a Commander player and you're like, I can't get into competitive Magic because it's too expensive, that's retarded. It's fucking retarded because there is a higher initial cost, but I guarantee you that you spend more on a Commander deck than you would spend on a Modern deck.
Yeah, and
every time,
even through any, like, the thing he likes about Commanders is you can just buy one-ofs and then swap them between different decks.
Nobody does that.
But I've seen this person.
Nobody does that.
He has like 1 million decks, and I don't see him swapping cards out when he switches from deck to deck.
No.
He doesn't do this.
Well, the thing is, there's been times where I've said that about Modern cards. Like, thinking about Magic players, no one wants to do that.
Nobody wants to do that.
No matter the format.
No, I've done it way more times than what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, well, you don't want to.
How many times have I wished, like, what I really just need is like fucking 8 play sets of Snapcaster Mage and I'd be good. You know?
Well, and the thing about that is you're spending money on cards like Ristic Study, that is a shitty fucking card outside of that specific format.
Yeah.
You know, you're spending $30 on a 25-cent common.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked up.
So anyway, just a little, like, we almost got through an entire episode without shitting on Commander players. We almost got there. But I had that interaction.
Improvement.
Yeah, and like, we had like thrown a couple back at dinner, and like, I came back and like, just I couldn't stand it. They were like shitting on Modern. I was just like, you know what? You're just a pussy.
The cost thing.
I didn't say that, but I basically said that.
The cost thing is ridiculous. And
no, that's what threw me over the edge. I'm like, what are you talking about?
That's ridiculous because everybody spends an ass ton of money on
Well, they're like, the cheapest Modern deck you could possibly do. Wouldn't it be like $700? I'm like, no, it's probably like $200.
Yeah.
You can build Storm for like, what, a couple $100? Like,
Probably.
It doesn't cost anything.
Yeah, no, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
No, Commander decks are always, because again, it's like, are you playing white, blue, something? There's $30 in your fucking Ristic Study. There's $40 for your Smothering Tithe. There's whatever for your land tax. Oh, these bullshit mana rocks that shouldn't cost anything because everybody plays Commander. That stupid talisman, that's $8.
Yeah.
You're paying $8 for a fucking mana rock.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's fucking silly. That's so goofy. This what is it? Oh, God. there's like all the Commander rocks they printed that are 2 mana for Commander are all like $5 to $10. All of them. And it's a stupid ass card. It's a fucking mana rock. You're paying $5 to $10 for a 2 mana rock. Like, the economy is fucked.
Yeah. But hey, at least they're not wasting their money on Modern.
Right.
Or,
No, and
the matches actually.
I'm glad that people play Commander because I sell cards. I would never sell.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have anything to bitch about. Like, that was a fun time though. This happened recently. I was just like, what are you talking about?
Man, we almost made it through.
Yeah, we almost got there. But anyway,
almost so close.
That's gonna do it for this week's episode of Trigger on the Stack.
Yeah. Commander players. We do like you. We just want you to also play Modern.
Yeah, that's all we want is just don't be a pussy and just don't like. The problem is there's just Commander players that are good players and a lot I'm sorry, but a lot of the people that play because it is the casual format, and so a lot of people that play are not good. And so when I see a really good player beating up on not good players day in, day out, it's frustrating.
Yeah,
it's just frustrating. You should be like, you're good enough to actually compete. Why are you just beating up on children? And but hey.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, like the whole pricing thing. Like I play Commander because Modern's too expensive. That's ridiculous.
No, it is.
That's just a ridiculous statement.
All that is that it costs more at once to play because you do have to have a specific power level to compete. You have to spend enough at one time to have a good time. Commander, you can just crap something together, sit with a bunch of dudes, sit in the corner, twiddle your thumbs, cry about shit. Don't attack me, please let me have this turn, and you can play the game. But you will spend that money no matter what.
Yeah, the problem is the people who are into it enough to even engage in this conversation aren't doing that.
Right.
They're putting money into it.
No, they are.
Right?
They are, yeah.
Like
for sure.
The people who are beating up on little kids, don't tell me that they're all budget Commander decks.
No, they're not. They're not. No. The only cost justification is that you have to spend X amount at once to play Modern or whatever competitive format, and Commander, you can do it over time. But you still do it. You still spend that money.
Yeah.
You always do. They always do. I own a store. I see them do it. I hear it every day.
Yeah.
I see it right there. They all spend the money.
Yeah.
So, but the real thing is, there isn't any losing in Commander.
No, that's true.
And that's what it is.
I mean, everybody loses because they had to sit through a 4-hour game.
But, yeah. The thing is, though, there isn't an actual just like, I lost. The things that I did made me lose.
Yeah.
It's always, you can pin it on something else. If I would have had another turn, if he didn't do this, if I would have drawn this, yada yada. When it comes down to competitive one-on-one Magic, you lose.
Yeah.
Every time I've lost, I lost.
Yeah.
I don't pin it on anything else. I don't make any justifications. I did it. My deck choices, my card choices, my play choices, I lost. And that's what keeps a lot of Commander players out of competitive formats.
A lot of those excuses are bad anyway. Like if I would have had another turn, like hey, dude, pony up and buy a time on.
But that's what it is that they don't want to lose. Commander is basically the D&D of Magic. It's people that don't want to lose. They don't want an actual loss to the game, Yeah. And there has to be a loss to the game because it's not a cooperative game. Every other player is your enemy. That is the bit. You're going to murder them. That is the point. Fucking murder them. So. Alright. That is what that is.
Yeah. So join us again next week. We may say good things about Commander. Who knows?
We should actually... we should try.
We're going to do an episode, and it's going to be called, like, why we hate Commander and why it's okay that you don't.
Yes, and how Commander could be fun. I don't know.
That hurt to say because I don't even know if I believe that. But we'll have that episode. That'll be coming soon.
I mean, we yeah, you know what? That is good. We should have an episode about Commander where we actually see the positives in Commander. We're gonna do it.
Leave us any comments if you think that maybe that's just a bad idea. You want to talk us out of it? Just leave some comments, and we might not do that because that sounds atrocious.
I just feel like
we're not on that episode, so I can say as many bad things as I want right now.
I feel like we ought to, just because. I mean, that's the thing that sucks as a store owner is like so much revenue is Commander and so much of the player base is Commander, and I get it and I like it, and there are things that I like about it. There are things when it first started that I loved playing Commander when it first started, but it just very immediately went into a very narrow cone.
Yeah,
and it's exactly that every time, and that's so maybe that's what the conversation should be. Let's fix Commander.
Maybe we can figure that out when and if we do that episode.
When and if. But thanks everybody for tuning in, engaging with us a little bit. If anybody hasn't played Modern, you should come out and play Modern. Also, you should come out and play some League too. The next set's gonna be Dominaria. Our League is gonna be cool for that. It's gonna be fun. I assume Dominaria was fun last time, so it should be fun again.
It's also like basically the only place other than Magic Online where you have the chance to play against me. Like, so that's the best selling point I have.
If every time you listen to our stream or podcast, you're like, man, this guy's a fucking asshole. I'd love to show him what for.
Yeah.
There you go.
Come try.
That's how you show.
Come try, motherfucker.
That's how you show doesn't holler. What for?
This guy's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Fuck this guy.
Yeah.
That's how you get it.
You can come try to fuck me on Monday nights at Take Action Tattoo and Gaming, Warsaw, Indiana.
If you want to support us otherwise, we've had the website up on the stream page here. You can buy all of our playmats and whatnot and shiz, token decks and stuff at that website. So you should do so if you are not in town. If you're in town, just come the fuck out here and buy it and then play some cards. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. It was a fun time. Sorry to shit on Commander yet again. We try not to.
I'm not sorry.
It's not our fault that it happens because, well, if it didn't need to be shit on, guys like us wouldn't shit on it. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm not sorry at all.
All right.
Peace out.
Peace out.